Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Heather, and on this channel we like to walk a very fine line between a shopping addicted makeup monster and a responsible adult with a makeup hobby. Now, I really enjoy eyeshadow singles, duochromes, multichromes, blush, highlight, lip gloss, basically everything except pressed glitter, and today we're going to be reviewing my top 10 fall palettes that are not just brown and orange. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, stick with me. We're getting into it right now. And the irony is not lost on me that I am wearing pretty much a brown and orange eye look today, but I wanted to finish filming my first impressions with the Melt, Vida, and Muerte palettes. And so this is the look that I did with the Vida palette. That video should be coming up soon or should already be posted. I don't know. Stay tuned. That's why we subscribe to channels. But when I was thinking about palettes for fall, I immediately was like, oh yeah, I want to talk to you about like NYX Ultimate Utopia. I want to talk to you about like At First Sight. And I'm like, but these are all the like browns and orangey type shades, right? Because what makes me think fall about this palette is like all this like really warm browns in here. And then this one, first of all, I just think it's like a phenomenal palette. I'll talk your ear off about this palette, but it definitely has tons of these browns and kind of like neutrally beigey type colors. And I didn't want to pick out solely palettes that looked like that. So I set these two aside, and this is my subtle way of plugging both of them despite the fact that they don't meet the criteria for this video. At the end of the video, I'm going to show you a stack of about 5 palettes that I pulled from my collection that I really haven't given enough love to, that I also think would be perfect for fall, that I personally need to be using a little bit more. Okay, let's get into this. So the first one that I pulled out is the Sugar Pill. This is the Halloween capsule that came out for last year, so of course this would be perfect for fall. And while it does have this kind of like metallic orange shade here, I feel like with the other kind of like grungy, greeny, yellow, pukey kind of colors in here, and then you have all these really pretty pinks and purples and blues, that it does have a really interesting color story. It's perfect for fall. It has kind of that dark, more like somber ambiance to it. And despite the one orange that's in here, it has a really cool color story. So that was one of the palettes that I thought of immediately to talk about in this video. The second one definitely caught my eye because it is more of like a Halloween spooky palette. This is the Dark Souls palette from Lunar Beauty, which is a UK-based indie brand. And the actual color story looks like this. Now, I'll be the first to tell you that the mattes in this palette are a little thin. You really have to build these up or use a lot of like pigment primer. But the metallics in this, I really am drawn to. I think they would make a great like fall kind of deep, dark, grungy look with a little pop of this kind of brighter shade here. And you wouldn't have to be turning solely to oranges and browns to make that color story happen. So this one definitely came to mind because of that reason. The next one that came to my mind was the Unicorn Gang Shop palette. This is their like mermaid palette or whatever. I can't remember the name of this palette, and it's not written on here anywhere. But the color story looks like this, and I think this makes a great fall color story because everything is kind of like dark and grungy. You've got these really pretty pops of like fuchsia and purple here. You have this really nice navy blue here, and then you're anchored by these kind of mossy greens, which ironically named moss, and then this sort of like duochrome blue-green / brown shade. I think this is a really pretty color story, would be perfect for fall, nice and grungy, but no orange. Next up is the Nars Climax palette, and I was not originally thinking to pick up this palette, but then I saw more people swatching it and I was like, dang, it's really cute. And I thought it would be great for fall. And I love this sort of aubergine brown that you have in here. You've got a pop of blue, you've got two kind of grungy greens, and then you do have a couple of neutrals, but again, they're not super warm. Actually, this is a very cool toned palette. They're not warm, they're not that like brown and orange combo that you see all the time, like Natasha Denona Bronze, you know what I mean? That's all warm tones. So something like this I think is great for fall without being that like bright orange. The next one up, I could not skip over Colourpop. You guys know I have about 1,000,000,001 Colourpop palettes. And the one that sprang to my mind for the fall time was the Orchid You Knot. I think the Wine and Only would also be a good choice. It's a little bit more red toned. But the Orchid You Knot I love because it's very autumnal, this like really deep kind of like burgundy purple shades here. You've got this really pretty duochrome here that can kind of add some extra like light to. But all these shades are nice and deep and dark. I think this is one of the prettiest palettes that Colourpop ever put out in their monochrome series. And for me, it definitely screams fall. The mirror doesn't stick into it. I haven't glued it back in though because I've been lazy. Alright, next up is the Shroud and Batty Bean. She used to be called Butte Bean, but Shroud and Batty Bean palette here. It's freaking bats. And again, I think my theme for this like fall collection of palettes is definitely these like aubergine type colors, because a lot of my picks definitely have those colors in it. It's dark, it's grungy. You do have some kind of pops that make things a little bit more interesting, but you've got those kind of like pukey green shades here. This one kind of borderlines on that sort of chartreuse family. And then you have this really pretty kind of dark purple. So for me, when I'm thinking about like fall time palettes, Halloween, October, all those kinds of things, this is definitely coming to my mind. Another more recent acquisition in my collection is the Laminatrix Cosmetics Nocturnal palette, which looks like this. Very beautiful color story. This shade did arrive a little bit damaged, which is why it looks so crazy at the moment, but I do think this is a really pretty color story for fall. You definitely have some beautiful light reflecting shimmers in here with Milky Way, Night Vision, Dusk, Luna, even Constellation, which is very like, I don't know, when I look at it in the viewfinder it looks very copper, but when I look at it from this angle it almost has this like very olivey green metallic to it. Super pretty. And so I think this would also make a great addition for fall palettes without being that super warm orange. The next one up is the Odins Eye Norns palette. Now this definitely doesn't scream fall, right? Because it's like blues and purples and pinks on the cover, silver. But when you open it up, there's a lot of like depth here. A lot of that like teal. You've got sort of that like kind of grapey purple shade. You've got a kind of a black in here. You've got some kind of more neutral type shades without being bright orange. You do have one orange metallic, but if you kind of cover that up, I still think this makes a great fall palette despite that orange shade. You've got some really pretty like duochromes metallics here, and then this is actually a multi-chrome. And I'm sure I won't be able to catch that, but it goes from like pink to orange to gold to green on that shade. So it is super pretty, and I think can make a lot of really interesting looks accompanying the rest of the shades in this palette for fall. Sorry if some of my video looks a little bit different, but my card got full, so that usually doesn't happen to me, but here we are. Anyway, getting back into my fall palettes, we are almost done. I have 3 more to talk about. One of the other palettes that really struck me for fall was the Give Me Glow Bad Witch Club palette, and this one I picked up, of course, because it just has this like such a funky, fun, and interesting color story. I love the deep purples that you have here. Even this like purple-green combination really gives me Hocus Pocus vibes like no other. And I love that you have kind of this really interesting, vibrant, but like muted color story. So this one definitely gave me those same kind of fall tone vibes. The next one to talk about is a bit controversial in my eyes because a lot of people really like this palette. And while I like it, it's not like my all-time favorite, like right off every other brand kind of palette, which some other people seem to kind of feel like that. But this is the Nomad Cosmetics 669 palette, and it's in one of these like suitcasey coffin kind of looking things, and then this is the color story. So I think it does fit the fall theme in that it's very dark, it's very grungy. You've got some beautiful greens here, you've got some more like kind of aubergine burgundy type shades here, you've got some really pretty sparkly black metallics and some neutral grays, and only one real like red to orange to gold multi-chrome. Otherwise there's really no like oranges or browns in this palette. I think this makes a really pretty color story. However, I do think the multi-chrome formula in this brand is a little bit thinner than something like Cleona. So if you're used to Cleona, Divina, Terra Moon, you may find these a little bit lackluster. I would definitely use a glitter glue or spray your brush really well. But I do think it would make a great like fall time palette. And then the last one to talk about, now I don't think I could get away with doing a palette video talking about fall themed palettes without talking about Lunar Beauty Moonspell. I'm pretty sure somebody would call the cops, and I wouldn't blame them. But this is Moonspell Volume 1. Now this one has this really beautiful color story, and while it does have a couple of browns in here, there's this really pretty row of like grungy greens and teals, and you have this really great row of purpley kind of fuchsia purple shades, and I think that gives it a lot more interest and appeal than, again, things that are just more the like bright orange and brown. As an example, the Lunar Beauty Moonspell Volume 2 palette, which looks like this, has predominantly like oranges, browns, some pops of purple, and I think this one kind of falls into that trap of being a little bit more obvious, expected, not as like original or exciting as some of these other palettes that I've mentioned. And so for that reason, I definitely favor Volume 1 over the Volume 2 palette. And then we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about a couple palettes in my collection that I definitely think give me these same fall vibes, but I have not personally tried out enough yet. And the first one in that category is the ABH Subculture palette. I picked this up at TJ Maxx, Marshalls, one of those kind of places. And color story, of course, looks like this. I have no idea which iteration of this palette is. This one is. I have no idea if it's the first one that everybody hated or the second one that people seem to like better. Regardless, you have, you know, kind of these really pretty purples. You've got some dusky greens. You do have sort of these two kind of yellowy type shades, but not too, you know, not predominating the color story by any stretch. And then you have some really pretty duochrome shades, these two shades here. I've tried this palette out, I think just once, or I may have just swatched it against the Black Magic palette from Nomad Beauty, which they are remarkably similar, but that palette has 4 almost like gritty, glittery type shades in it, and this one does not, so that's why I decided to keep this one and declutter the other one. Spoiler alert. My declutter video is coming soon. I filmed them, I just haven't edited them because, oh my god, they take forever to edit. Next up is the original Colourpop and Hocus Pocus palette. I love this palette so much more than the second one. The second one I didn't even purchase. I didn't even look twice at it because I was just like, not for me. But this one I really like. Again, you've got kind of the grungier deep tones. I do not appreciate the fact that there's a pressed glitter in it, but I am going to probably pop that out and switch it for something else because Colourpop has... I have about 1,000,000,001 shadows from Colourpop, so I'm sure I'm able to kind of bring something else to the table there. But I think I've only used this one once, and I definitely need to use it a little bit more. I also think this palette is kind of extra special in that it has these 3 kind of duos lined up for you that you could easily make just like a 2 shadow look, kind of a like a halo eye kind of thing that would look really pretty with any of those 3 duos. So definitely need to give this one more of a try. The next one, this is from Sugar Drizzle Polish. This was actually my first purchase from them, or my second purchase from them. But it's their Halloween palette from last year, and they do these really like goofy kind of covers. I don't really care about that at all. But the inside, I'm like, okay, spooky Halloween vibes, and I'm here for it. I can acknowledge that there are 2 kind of orangey shades in here, and this one, oh my gosh, my kids snuck into my room and just decimated my makeup. Thank God they didn't get anything that was like limited edition, or I would have had like a whole breakdown, but I had to repress that one. This palette, although it has 2 oranges and this one kind of like burgundy red shade, I do still feel like it's not that stereotypical kind of orangey brown color story, and this is a lot of like toppers and more interesting type shades, so I'm very excited to try to break this out and pair it with some of these other palettes in the coming months. And can we just talk about Creeping It Real? This shade, it's like a green iridescent that shifts to a purple. It's this one right here. right down there. You can see it has this very faint like lavender base that shifts to then a green in the light. Super pretty. And if you can see, my nails are like really crazy right now. My kids and I were tie-dyeing when we went on vacation this past week, and my entire hands, like all the way down to the knuckle, or all the way down to the wrist, were purple, like almost black purple. It was really crazy. So the fact that this is all that remains is actually really reassuring to me, because I have to go back to work on Monday. Next palette up is the Nomad Berlin Underground palette, and this one I've actually had in my collection for a little bit, and I don't reach into it as much as I should. I feel like I've done a couple of looks with it and then I just kind of set it to the side. It does have some like more of those like orangey brown shades here in the center. These four I would kind of make the case for. But everything is very cool toned, which is why I pulled this one out and still felt like it kind of met the criteria for what we're talking about today, because everything is more cool toned. It's not that stereotypical like really bright, you know, autumnal leaves kind of colors. So I pulled this out. I definitely think some of these like really almost metal grungy shades look so pretty, and I'd like to work them into some looks. They all have kind of this like satin appearance though, so that's something that I try to think about when I'm considering using this palette, is like, how do I work these all together? So there's like 5 of the shades there. And they all just have kind of a really nice satin look to them. So it's definitely something that I think needs some partner palettes to go with. Next up is the Alien Cosmetics Not Normal palette. So they are Unearthly Cosmetics now, but this is the OG. And again, you have really pretty kind of grapey purples. You've got some grungy greens. The only real brown per se is this shade here, and it's not that sort of very warm toned brown that you would normally expect. You've got some really pretty shimmers in here. I think you could make some very beautiful looks with this. I know you can, because Betty Jean from Butte Bean or Batty Bean or whatever her name is now, she's the one that inspired me to get this palette, because every look she did with it I was like, alright, I guess I just need to buy it. Like, you don't have to tell me twice. I mean, she did, but she didn't have to, because I already wanted it. So I definitely need to bust this one out and play a little bit more with it. By the time I got it, it was more like springtime, and I was kind of just like, I don't know, it's not the time. And then the last one that I wanted to talk about in sort of my palette to-do list is the Nomad Cosmetics. This is the Haunted Europe palette, and I love that it has this like, I don't know, there's a name for this. I can't remember. Somebody recently with the Huda Beauty, what is it, the Love palette that she just put out, that 9-pan, they like scratched over it so that you would know what it was. Ugh. It's like nails on a chalkboard. What a horrible sound. This is what this palette looks like, long story short. And you kind of have to ignore like this 6 pans over here, but these like 9 pans here in the center are what drew me into this palette in the first place. So I did not have much intention of using those shades, but that particular, like the rest of these shades, I think even like that looks so cool. It's so grungy, and I know when I got this originally, I got it at launch, which is like a year ago. But I didn't start using it because I wanted to take pictures of all the pretty embossings, and then I just never got around to taking the pictures. So then I haven't used it, and I'm like, I need to use this palette. Like, it's too pretty not to use. So that's definitely on my list of things to use for this fall. Alright, and with that said, let me know in a comment down below, what are some palettes that really strike you as like super fall palettes? Are they all those kind of orangey brown palettes, or do you have some palettes that really strike you as those fall tones without being that more obvious orange brown color story? Definitely let me know in a comment down below. I want to thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe before you go, and I will catch you in my next video.